Financial Aid Monthly Webcast, and we will go ahead and get started. Today we will have our topics of discussion as the following. We will cover the funds processing overview for state financial aid programs. We will go over the college access loan interest rate. We'll talk about the TASFA, the Texas application for state financial aid and updates there. We'll talk about the move downtown for the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. And then we'll save time for reminders, updates, and deadlines, along with questions. So in terms of getting started, we'll start with our funds processing overview for our state financial aid programs. Now today we are highlighting specifically the basics. We're going to go over requesting funds for state financial aid programs and then also returning funds. So there's so many other aspects of the funding process, but today we're just going to go over some highlights. So in terms of how are funds processed and understanding all the different avenues of different portals and forms and methods, we're going to highlight how these are distinct for each state financial aid program. So in terms of starting off, we're going to look at the grant payment portal and the process that you'll be able to find with the CBPass portal. And when you use the grant payment portal, funds can be processed through this portal for state financial aid for grants. You can be able to manage the Texas grant, the Texas Educational Opportunity Grant, and the tuition equalization grant, just depending on your school and the programs you participate in. Now, this is all through a specific portal, but when we're talking about avenues, we're not just talking about portals. Some avenues and methods of processing funds are related to different forms or methods, but for grants, luckily, it's one place and it's under the CBPass portal system. So that is one system, so you'll see them there. And then we're going to look at a little bit closer at our loans and related scholarships. So HelmNet is a separate avenue. It's a separate portal, and there's also a different means and method related to college access loans, which is called the Commonline. So we'll talk about that also. So for college access loan and the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program, they have their different portals and methods of processing funds. So that's a lot of detail right there, and we're going to go into both the CBPass grant payment portal and then also look at HelmNet and also Commonline. So those are a couple of intersections right there. But what we will also do is look at funds requests as forms. There are a couple of forms that you'll be using to request and process funds, such as with the Bilingual Education Program and the Educational Aid Exemption Program. Those will have forms. So we will delve into that and what that looks like. And then we just also like to mention there are some avenues that where funds aren't requested. So it's a very separate process. So in terms of the work study programs, such as the Texas College Work Study and the Work Study Student Mentorship Program, that is a very different process. Those don't require requesting access, but they are programs that you opt in to participate in. So it's distinct. So we're looking at that a little separate. Okay, well, hopefully that didn't create too much thought traffic with all these avenues and intersections, but we're going to delve in a little deeper here on our different paths. We're going to start with grants. How does grants processing work? Well, it's a bit of a three-step dance to be able to request grant funding. So to get and request grants, we can kind of work backwards. Well, to get and request grants, we're going to need to request access to a specific portal. And to do that, we have to create an account. So that's thinking backwards. Thinking forwards, as an administrator, what you would need to do to request grants would be to create an account within CBPass. And we're going to look at what that looks like. And then you have to request specific access to the grant payment portal, and that's because CBPass is used for a lot of different programs within our institution. So you would have to request specifically the grant payment portal. And then from there, you'll have different tools within that portal once you have access. And one of those tools is requesting funds. So let us look at this a little closer. Let us work on creating the account for CBPass. Now, with a lot of user access, we have you fill out a user access form and have it signed by a director. CBPass is a little different. The administrator, the user, you will have to create an account in CBPass. So what we have highlighted here is you would go to CBPass, and you can find these links on our program resources banner on the right section in the red banner. You can find a lot of links for all these different portals, along with a lot of information of how to use these portals and how to go through these steps. And just to mention, you can find all these steps in how to get access to CBPass along with other programs and forms and information. You can find this in the guidelines for the specific programs. For example, for FY 2023, you can find specific instructions now for CBPass and the grant payment portal. So that should be very useful. After today, you can pull those up and see those steps visually. So that's always helpful. Okay, so creating an account. The applicable programs that you would create an account for would be for administering Texas Grant or TEOG or TEG. So you wouldn't need access for other programs here, but if you are administering and overseeing grants for your institution, this is where you go. So you click on the Create One Now for the Create an Account. And from there, you're going to work through the steps after it says Create an Account, and you'll be filling out your profile. Remember to put your institutional email. That'll be very important. Put your institutional information there. And most important, but sometimes overlooked, is the affiliation process. This is what allows for THECB to know what school you are connected to what grant program you are connected to, and allocation. So it's very important. Now, here highlighted in red in the squared off box is the affiliation. It can be a little tricky, and what you'll need to do is to be able to put in information about your school, and that's typically the name of your school, or it could be the FICE code, and then your institution should pop up. If it doesn't pop up, then it's possible that it might not affiliate correctly. You want to be able to affiliate with your school, your institution, and the name or the FICE. Now, sometimes if you type in the FICE code, if it doesn't recognize the school connected, the affiliation may go to other. Now, It's very important from here that you get the affiliation correctly connected, or you won't be able to be connected to the allocations for your institution. So this step is really important. We're always there to help if you're having any trouble, but just remember that the affiliation here is for your school, and type in the name of your school or the FICE, and hopefully your school will pop up or you'll be able to select it. So that's the important aspect there. Now, once you fill out your whole profile, you'll be able to save, and then you'll be asked to create some security questions. Write down something that works for you. They are very specific, and you'll need to have them so that you can gain access again if you have trouble with a password. Now, if you have trouble with your account, you can reach out if the resetting a password is not working for you, or if you have trouble with the security questions, you can reach out and we'll try to assist you in getting access back. So that's the creating an account. Let's hop on over to the next step. Requesting access. So we have our account, but there are a lot of programs available under CBPass. And if you're administering any of the grant programs, you're going to need to select the grant payment portal. So GPP is what we often call it. So step one, on the left top of your screen, there's a highlighted link that says click to request access to another application. Click on that and find grant payment portal under that drop down. Request access. Once that goes through, we as THECB will see that request, and we will coordinate with your director to ensure that you should have access to the application. So once that's confirmed, we will be adding you to our user access for the grant payment portal, and then you'll be able to see that you have access and you can get into that specific portal. So again, the steps here are: you already have your account, you log in, you request access to GPP, you click on the request, that goes through, we confirm it, and then we'll send notice that you have confirmed and you should be able to access the grant payment portal. So that's set. Let's talk about requesting those funds. That's what we're here for. So in terms of requesting funds, we've already gone in, we've logged in, for example, and we already have access to the grant payment portal. Given that, now we can use some of the different tools available here. So on the top, you'll see different tabs when you log in, and one of them is request funds. Easy enough. A couple of the other tabs are return funds or different award history. There are different tools here. But for now, requesting funds, you'll select that from the top tab, and then you'll have some fields that you can fill in. And so what will you need to enter? You'll need to enter the amount of funds that you want to request. Easy enough. Just be careful. You want to use just the amount and no special characters. Don't have a monetary money sign or anything like that. Then it will also ask, and then the program type should be there and available. So if you're asking for Texas grant, that should be all set in there. Then you'll want to enter the student count. And this includes both initial and renewal students, just in case you remember in the past that it was ever different. It's important to know this is for initial and renewal students. So you put in your student count. Then you'll be able to hit submit your request, and then you should get a confirmation. It should pop up as a successful request. Now, it's not super clear here, but there are some really good reminders on the bottom of the page in red, and then also below on some really helpful tools on how to navigate, what to put in here, and just some general help to make sure that the request goes through well. Now, if you ever have follow-up questions on this, feel free to give us a call or reach out. But this is the basic requesting funds process. All right, so we finally were able to go in and request funds. Let us talk about, say, if we need to return funds. So in the grant payment portal, you'll be able to click on and select the Return Funds tab. Simple enough. A different tab within the same portal makes it simple. And here you can similarly put in the information, and you'll have tips on the bottom to help you navigate what to put in there. So you'll be able to select the return of funds. You can enter the amount in the same way. You don't want to add any special characters. And then you'll enter the student count, and this will be the same process here. You'll want to hit submit. You'll want to have that pop-up confirmation. And that's just step one now for returning funds, because here where funds have dispersed, it's not just a request anymore. We also need to return the actual funds. So it's very important with returning funds that you coordinate with the business office to get the funds back to the THECB. And so this can be done through the electronic funds transfer by using that information, or the automated clearinghouse, ACH, and you can get the funds using the information to send it back to THECB. Okay, so it's a two-stepper to return funds. Put in the request or the notification to return the funds in the grant payment portal, and then send the funds. Without sending the funds, it's not a return. So there is that process there. Let us move ahead to a specific important aspect about grant funds. Now, you may already be aware about the additional B110 strategy funds and how this is a slightly different process. So the B110 strategy funds, to request the funds is outside of the GPP portal. It is a Smartsheets request. It's a form, and you can learn more information going back to a memo sent out on March 1st about this process. And so this is a separate specific form for the additional funds, and this will be a request that you use to get these additional funds. So if you haven't already used up the funds in the grant payment portal, you have to start there before you can get to these additional funds. But if you've done that, you make the request through the Smartsheets form, just as if you were doing it through the grant portal. It'll be very similar, but you have to remember that it's a separate form from the portal. So that's the requesting of these additional funds for grant. Okay, so let's talk about the return of funds for these specific grants of the B110 additional strategy funds. To return the funds is also different. You will want to use the online return of funds form that you can find on our program resources page. And you'll fill this information out just for the returning of the B110 grant funds. So it would only apply to those additional funds. And you would use the information on our electronic funds transfer information instructions, or ACH, to get those funds back to us. So it's also a two-stepper. You have the return of funds form, you send that in, and you coordinate with the business office to ensure that the money actually is sent through. Okay, so a distinct process just for those distinct additional strategy funds. All right, so from there, we've talked about grants, and we've talked about their request and the return of grants. Now let's talk about some of the special programs. So let's talk about the bilingual education program and the educational aid exemption program. Both of these two programs have a new funds request form, and this is also a form through Smartsheets. So we used to have a form that was distinct for bilingual education and for educational aid exemption to request these programs. And now we will be doing this through a new funds request form. So that's kind of exciting there. And not only for the request, but also there's a distinct way to return these special funds. So here, to return educational aid exemption or bilingual education program funds, you will complete the return of funds form, and this you can also find on our program resources page under the right-hand banner in the red banner. You can find this form and fill it out. And just like everything else, you have the form and then you send the money to. So you coordinate with the business office so that the request and the return and the instructions, or rather the actual sending, so that they go together. All right, so that is the return of funds for these specific programs for EAE and bilingual education. Now let's look at a different program here. And actually, right before we do, as the alarm picture shows us, it's important to think about deadlines for the programs that we just talked about. So August 1st is the deadline to request funds for the grant program, specifically Texas Grant, Texas Educational Opportunity Grant, Tuition Equalization Grant, the B110 Additional Funds, Strategy Funds, Grant Funds, Bilingual Education, and Educational Aid Exemption. So keep that in mind. This is the deadline to request those funds for fiscal year 2022. All right, with that in mind, just keep that aware, and let us talk about what happens. So say you put in all the requests that you could, but you have leftover funds related to the specific grant-related programs. So that's okay. Grant funds carry over. So funds that you have left over as a not expended for fiscal year 2022 will automatically be carried forward for you from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. So there's nothing that you need to specifically do, no action on your part. This is an automated process. And also there's no cap or maximum amount. Whatever is left over will automatically carry over. So again, no request or action needed on your part. Now, even say, for example, if you did an authority to transfer related to work study programs and you put that into your grant program funds, these funds too, once they're in the grant program funds, they will also carry over. It's not anything different here. The funds that are in grants for fiscal year 2022, whatever they may be, are carried over and carried forward to fiscal year 2023. Okay, so that may be a breath of fresh air. You're good here. Since we've finished talking about grants and also some of the special programs such as EAE and bilingual education, let us now talk about loans and scholarships. So let's talk about processing for college access loan and the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program. Now, these two are distinct in what's available and how you can do it. For example, Commonline file is an available tool through Move It DMC, but for college access loan, not for the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program. So for Cal, for the college access loan, there is a tool called the Common File, and you can more easily, once it is set up for your school, be able to process many more loans at once. And so it could be a simpler process, but you have to set it up. So it could be an available option for your school, but you would have to set it up and coordinate with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board on it. Once it's set, you could potentially be able to look at hundreds of college access loans at a time. So it could be convenient once it's set up, so it could be an available option there. But that's just for Cal. Now, there's also manual certification, and more administrators may be familiar with this through the HelmNet portal. So HelmNet portal is very different from Move It DMC. Let's just do a quick comparison. Move It DMC is a portal for the whole institution. There's one account. So that's different in how it works. If you ever are unable to log in, you can give us a call, and the director or delegate for Move It DMC that we have on our user access can reach out for assistance for resetting the password. But remember that this is one account for the whole institution, and you're not requesting individual accounts. So that being said, HelmNet is very different. HelmNet has individual accounts for administrators, and this would have to be requested through a user access form from a director so that an administrator could have a HelmNet account to be able to certify college access loans and TASP. Now, Cal and TASP are a little different in how certification works and how processing works. So if you needed another layer, here it is. College access loans, the accounts are set up by students, and the certification process is a bit different for administrators. So sometimes when you're looking at the college access loan and you're trying to certify, you may notice that the button for certification isn't working. Well, what you can do is you want to find the actual application for the college access loan. And that way, once you find the application, then you'll be able to hit the certification button. It's a different process. Now, TASP is distinct because the administrator is creating the account. So for the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program, it is different, certification is different, and the available tools and options will look a little different. So keep that in mind. I know that's a lot to think about, but there are different manuals and instructions that may be of help to walk through the steps for the college access loan and for the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program. But just to summarize here, this is all through HelmNet, a specific portal for managing state loans and scholarships. All right, let us look at then, we've looked at processing. Let's look at returning funds for a college access loan and for the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program. So say if you need to return funds, you complete the return of funds form, and this one's specific for Cal and TASP. You can find it again on our program services page on the right-hand banner, and you would fill that out and submit. And you would also have to coordinate with your business office to be able to then send the funds back to the THECB. So kind of similar to the other two, when returning funds, you have the form and then you have the money sent. All right, so that's the returning there. We're going to skip on over from highlighting, requesting, and returning to look at something that's very important to know coming up. So every year there's a Comptroller Closure. So this does impact state financial aid programs. The closure for this year will be August 31st, 7 p.m. through September 1st, 7 a.m. for this year 2022. So with that closure, it does have an impact on the state financial aid, and there's also Labor Day to consider. Now, with the opening of the comptroller will be back open on Friday, but just looking at the availability and Labor Day coming up that Monday, the state financial aid programs will be, that you request will be again started back up after Labor Day. So basically the time frame to keep in mind to watch for is August 31st right through Labor Day because of the impact of the comptroller closure. Now, what does this mean in terms of getting in requests and certifications? If a student if you are processing a college access loan, for example, for a student, encourage the student to complete their loan acceptance disclosure, also called LAD, as soon as possible to avoid the disbursement delays during the closure. So this is, again, a really important for students that are working on the process of getting a loan. Encourage that LAD be complete as soon as possible. Given we're close to the end of July here and going into August, the sooner the better so that they don't have an impact on their delay or any other delay in getting that set for them. Well, all right, that's a lot to process and think about, and we'll actually have more information to come just in concern of August and thinking about the next fiscal year. So we'll follow up in the coming webcasts with more information and more tools to navigate processing funds. But without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn our presentation over to Giselle Martinez, and she'll be able to talk about the college access loan.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Laura. All right, please bear with me as I try to get onto the next slide. All right, so next we are going to talk about the college access loan interest rate updates. Effective August 1st, 2022, the college access loan will carry a fixed interest rate of 5.35%. Borrowers who begin their Cal application process on or after August 1st will be subject to this interest rate. Please note that interest rate changes are driven by the interest rate of the latest bond sale and the overall restrictions on bond funding for the Cal program. An updated solicitation disclosure will be provided to institutions reflecting the updated interest rate for those that include the THCB on their preferred lender list. Next, we are going to be going over some 23-24 TASFA updates. We are continuing to refine the online TASFA and are progressing with our internal and external user acceptance testing. We have iteration 1 where we tested the independent student process, and iteration 2 where we tested the dependent student process have been completed. We are gearing up to start iteration 3 testing, where we will test submission to additional colleges and emails sent to users. After iteration 3, we will work on iteration 4 testing, where we will test the full application process. And this includes submitting the initial application, resubmitting to additional colleges, printing out a copy of the submitted online TASFA, and all application functions. Next, we're going to be going over the paper TASFA. Since we have been spending a lot of our time updating stakeholders on the online TASFA, we also thought it would be important to highlight what to expect for the paper TASFA for 23-24. We have a picture of the 22-23 paper TASFA where the parent and the student income sections are side by side. But for the 23-24 paper TASFA, we will have these sections separate. Since we don't have an image of the 23-24 paper TASFA available yet, we have provided an image of the separate sections of the online TASFA just to give you an idea of how they will be separate. Although it's not identical to the FAFSA, we will keep a similar concept. The paper TASFA will have the same question order as the online TASFA. The TASFA committee requested various changes to be removed that were either not used, that were confusing, or just not helpful. The following questions have been removed from the 23-24 TASFA. Date of graduation, college grade level, conviction restrictions. Although the state's requirement still applies, institutions are still required to collect the statement of eligibility if applicable. This requirement applies to institutions that award TEOG and Texas grant. We have also removed the question involving how many credits or hours a student will be enrolling, the associate degree for transfer students question, if they have previously received state aid, and the work authorization and work study questions. We will also have clear instructions on how to turn in the paper copy of the TASFA and distinctions between the paper and the online TASFA as applicable. Next is we will be moving. This is just a reminder that we will be moving downtown in September to the Capitol complex. At this moment, our PO box does remain the same. So if you are sending over payments to us or any checks, our PO box is the same. That should not be interrupted. We will be located in the Capitol complex in the State Bush building. And we do recommend you update your records with the agency's new address once we do move. Due to this move, FAS staff will be working remotely in August through mid-September as the agency transitions downtown. We do encourage, while payments are not interrupted, we do encourage for institutions who have not yet to consider moving over to EFT. There are just some reminders, updates, and deadlines that are coming up. Our summer institutional calendar is posted on our SFAP webpage under the Stay Connected page. Also, our user accounts for CBPass and HelmNet that will be removed if they are inactive for over 12 months. Accounts for HelmNet and CBPass are should only be for active users. We are deleting unused accounts to ensure security on our financial aid websites. As for updates, we do have exemption and waiver guideline updates coming soon. These updates are for our other exemption and guideline programs that do not get updated on a yearly basis, as these requirements don't change. Coming soon is also an updated copy of the 23-24 paper TASFA, so keep a lookout for future updates from us. Some deadlines that are coming up. The deadline to request 21-22 funds for Texas grant, TEOG, TEG, B110 grants, educational aid exemption, and bilingual education program is on August 1st, 2022. And the deadline to validate ads cycle 2 is August 22. If you guys have any questions in regards to this presentation or other questions, we do have the following phone lines available to the general public, borrowers, and institutions. We have our borrower services line that is available to student borrowers and co-signers who participate in the CAL program, in the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program, and even be on time. They can, if they have any questions regarding their loan, they can give us a call at this number. We also have a line open to the general public. This is for students who just need information on how to apply to college for financial aid. If you're not able to answer their question, please direct them over to us. But if possible, if possible, please try to limit it to financial aid inquiries. Next are the ways that you guys can contact us. First is our institutional phone line. We are open from 8 a.m. to 5, but we are closed during lunchtime, 12 to 1 daily. And you guys can reach us there at our institutional number. We also have our contact us web form. We do prefer for y'all to contact us using this form just so you can get a response in writing. When you submit a contact us request, please choose your institution, enter your institution's name, as a lot of these our answers are institution specific. Please enter financial aid as a contact reason, so it could be directed to us. And just in case we may have additional questions, we do recommend to fill out your contact information entirely. It would be helpful to provide a direct phone number just in case we do have additional questions. And that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post on the chat, and we do have Leah answering questions. Thank you guys for joining us today. I hope you guys learned a lot from this presentation. We will be posting this online on our Stay Connected website. We will be posting a PDF file and a recording within the next week.